Colorado is always mentioned at or near the top of any list when it comes to providing the talent and skill needed for successful business ventures. Leaders in Colorado want to compete nationally for high-paying jobs of all kinds. But for many living in Colorado, it simply isn't a fair competition, and many can't even get in the game.
If we laid asphalt like we lay broadband, then the Front Range in Denver would have, all their highways would be 2-3 feet thick, and you'd get out of Castle Rock and drop down to a single track dirt road. And that's kind of what we have in Cortez, right, at least from the private standpoint. I think that we found that most of the large incumbents have relied on their copper infrastructure and maybe to a lesser extent on cable, but we really haven't seen any investment in fiber. We have maybe 25% of people in Montezuma County that work from home, and so the ability for them to do their work out of their home is paramount to their quality of life and in their economic sustainability. And then we have larger companies like Osprey that are literally global companies that are trying to operate out of Cortez as well.
Well, Osprey was not located in Cortez in southwest Colorado because of its technology base. It had many other drivers. It was located there primarily to be close to the mountains, close to the canyons and mountains where we designed and used our product, but principally because we built our product for many years in southwest Colorado when we tapped into the Native American sewing skill base that was there. So it so happened that we had an economic reason to be in southwest Colorado, but of course we were running a real business as well. One thing that we simply had to have was strong internet access, fast speeds to support the growing technology requirements of the company. Osprey and Cortez worked hand in hand in developing their internet access and internet speeds. And I have to say, we were a driver. We pushed it hard. But I compliment Cortez for being a strong receiver of the message and themselves making a commitment to expanding internet access and internet speeds. We had a lot of trenching going on in those days, but in return for that, we had great internet access, or at least it was growing over time, and demonstrating to ourselves and the city that that investment was paying off because we were growing, we were paying more taxes, we were hiring more people, and it was all because we were creating great product, but we had an operational platform behind it that could receive, store, and ship product and take orders, and all of that demands a strong technology platform, including fast internet access.
Broadband, access to the internet and all it offers, is more than just a tool for economic development. It's simply become a necessity these days for people, community services, and education.
They were really hurting in the Plains section of our state as far as high costs per meg, and little to no service because they couldn't afford what they needed. They don't have the service into town. The telco just doesn't simply have enough line into town to turn up the speeds that's needed by the districts. They can't test. They can't all watch the same video at the same time. They can't all use the same applications all at the same time. They have to schedule how and when they can use those internet-based services. Or they simply just don't use them because they don't work. We were a large enough consortium that we were able to bring in a vendor who didn't have a shop set up in Colorado at all. They came from the East Coast. They can purchase the services from the same provider the incumbent provider, put their services on top of it, which is what I'm seeing as a consumer, and deliver it cheaper than the incumbent is willing to deliver it themselves.
Just as there wasn't a business case to be made for electric companies in the 1920s and 30s, in which electric companies refused to build the necessary power lines to provide sufficient electric services to rural areas, we now see broadband providers making similar claims that costs are too high and deployment too difficult to reach rural Colorado.
We provide high-quality care to a very large demographic area that has a very small population. The population is aging. As we try to get out to see them so that they don't have to come see us, telehealth becomes even more important. I'm not a clinician. I don't provide patient care, so the only way that I can help the community is to provide them with the technology that would give them access to health care that they would otherwise have to travel long distances, pay exponentially higher costs, speak to people that they've haven't been speaking to their entire lives. I've had some very, very heated discussions not only with the incumbents, but with other internet service providers that are chomping at the bit to get in and help us, but otherwise can't afford it, aren't allowed to do it, or have too many obstacles to make it worthwhile on their end. The only way that I was able to get that answer was to actually reach out to a state legislator to have them start having this conversation for me. The incumbent would not speak to me after a couple of conversations trying to get an explanation as to why they're unable to do something that is pretty much standard practice anywhere else across the country. Just because we're rural, I don't think that means that we should be able to be taken advantage of. The word fair doesn't even compute in this point. It's just the right thing to do. And if you're unwilling to do it, then leave and let somebody else come in and help us. Or let us help ourselves.
In the 1900s, it was government that had to step in to get the lines built with the Rural Electrification Act of 1936. Government was a successful part of the solution. Today in Colorado, many believe government needs to have the opportunity to be part of the broadband solution in our state. But outdated, obstructive legislation and a vocal lobbying effort by the telecom industry continue to put Colorado further behind, preventing even public-private partnerships, and stagnating our ability to compete and provide some of the basic needs and services most states enjoy. The time is now for state and local government to be part of the solution.